as well. Delighted to say we've got former Sligo captain Neil Ewing and four-time All-Ireland winner with Kerry, Darran O'Sullivan, with us. How are you getting on, lads?
All the best, Will, yeah. And you?
I'm not too bad. I'm looking forward to some pretty interesting matchups this weekend, Neil, including when we look at Connacht. We'll talk about Roscommon and Galway because that's a big game between two Division 1 sides, but also an intriguing match between Sligo and New York, with your county coming into this on the back of becoming, I believe, one of the big dogs. With one word left out is what the captain had to say after the final midweek.
Yeah, I don't think any of us could word it any better than Kenneth Mulligan did on Wednesday night. I guess an incredibly a proud moment for everybody in Sligo, and a great bunch of lads. Great to see them get the reward to go to Tuam and win a Connacht title. Second Connacht Under 21 title in a row is just incredibly impressive. So I think we could all forgive him maybe one misstep or two in his speech, but I think it really hit home. Just what it meant to everybody in Sligo, and of course it was popular online as well, so fair play to Canis, fair play to the lads. A real great news story.
Yeah, when it comes to this achievement, back-to-back successes, beating the three big guns is how the sentence started. To have come through against Mayo, Galway and against Roscommon all on the road in winning this title makes it very hard earned as well. Are we looking at a particularly strong group of Sligo footballers coming through? Because this current bunch were a decent minor team as well, weren't they?
Yeah, there was a decent minor team. A lot of those guys would have won a Connacht minor title as well. And, we had went, so long in Sligo without any underage provincial success that we've had, three Connacht titles in a 3-year period is just, something that, even talking to some friends during the week that we couldn't have ever foreseen. You're always thinking, okay, if we can finally get an under 20 title, finally get a minor title, in the next 5 or 10 years and start building on that, to have such sustained success in such a short period of time is really incredible. Is it just one good bunch of lads? I don't know. Probably, again, a lot of those lads would have been involved with a Summerhill team, which won a Connacht A title, schools title this year, and also St. Attract has won a Connacht B schools title this year. So, there's a little bit of depth there. I think, it's probably just a reflection of some great work that's went on in the schools. And to be honest, a lot of that work would have maybe started 15 years ago, and probably not every group or crop that's come through has been able to compete at the very top level. But definitely you can see if you get the right people involved, if the right structures are there, you get your rewards from it. But a lot of people in Sligo are very positive about the wins. I guess probably one lookout for me, and it's not to be in any way pessimistic about it, is if we look at our nearest and dearest neighbours in Roscommon, they're competitive now in Division 1. They've picked off a few Connacht senior titles over the last few years, but that's probably only on the back of a decade where at underage level they were winning titles maybe every 2 or 3 years at minor and under 20. So it's great to get these wins, but I think we probably need to back it up over a 5 to 10 year period for us to, really go and try to emulate what they've done in Roscommon and move into that next tier of teams.
And Neil, you could well be a quiz question in the future in Sligo. You might be the first team ever to qualify for the All-Ireland Series without beating a team from Ireland to do so.
Yeah, that's the challenge that's ahead of the seniors, and I suppose lots of people look at it as an opportunity. But I know myself, as I was in that group of players preparing to go into Markledge Park tomorrow and play New York, and maybe to people outside of Connacht or to people who maybe aren't aware of the quality that's in New York, that might sound like I'm being a little patronising, but it's not at all. I think if you look at that New York team, there's some phenomenal talent in it. Even before the Leitrim game, you look through the panel that they named, even the team that they named. They have two, Alan Campbell, Bill Maher from Tip, who would have won a provincial title with Tip in 2020, Rob Wharton, another one of their vendors from Kerry, who Darran will be familiar with. I know he's had some time in the Kerry panel, or at least Kerry wanted him involved in their panel at one stage or another. Owen Cairn was an All-Star nominee with Galway. Gavin O'Brien, again, somebody probably wouldn't be a million miles off the Kerry panel. Adrian Varley has, done his time in Division 1 with Galway. Shane Carthy has won a Club All-Ireland and 2 All-Irelands with Dublin. And, that's not a calibre player that you find in Division 3 and 4 counties. So, to be honest, it's been coming for a number of years, because what they've started to do in New York is bring through those homegrown players, which is the real good news story here. But they've also kept those guys that have moved over, maybe they've been just with different visa situations than maybe years ago. Even probably a reflection of the different demographic of guy that's gone over there and the type of jobs that they're working in now. They've been able to keep them a bit more long term, start to build things year on year. So, you know, I was in no way surprised when they beat Leitrim. And I think it's important to emphasise that it should be no way seen as a reflection on Leitrim that New York beat them. I think New York would beat, you know, maybe 10 to 15 teams back here at home, or they have the capability of doing that in a one-off game.
Darren, would you agree this New York team have got the capability to beat 10 teams in Ireland right now?
I wouldn't disagree. I think if they got enough games under their belt, like I was only going through their team for the weekend, and there's a lot of quality there. And I think what they're probably lacking is more regular competitive games. Probably is the only thing holding them back. I think it's a lot more appealing, and Neil touched on it there. The lads that are going out there, they're not going for short stints now. They're actually setting up shop there. They're staying for longer periods. They're settling in. They're buying into what I suppose New York are trying to build from the underage. And we've seen they've had success in fail level in recent times in colleges and stuff. So, yeah, like just going through their team for the weekend, like obviously Sligo are going through a great patch at the moment and they've had success, so they're going to be full of confidence. But I don't think it'll be the biggest shock in the world if New York push Sligo all the way. I can't see it with the way Sligo were moving and with the success of the under-20s. I think that always gives another knock on, another kick in confidence. But like it's great, a bit like London last year. Throughout the National League, they had a great run of it. If you can get maybe a year or two of positive results, who's to say they won't start climbing the ladder a bit more?
Yeah, like the thing about it is, Darren, we were listening to the Brosnan brothers, Mikey Brosnan, who scored the winning penalty. His dad had gone over from Kerry, he said, in the late 80s. He didn't want to say exactly when he went over in the interview, in case anyone was checking up that he didn't have a visa when he originally arrived in New York, was the joke he was making. But his two young lads have come through the club system within New York, are now playing for the New York senior team. Shane Carthy was on with us last week. He spoke about the fact that, you know, his football had come in New York before he moved over to Dublin in his late teens and then becomes an All-Ireland winner with Dublin. This is a totally different story compared to guys who used to go over there for a few summers or maybe go for work and who would put a jersey on. They're actually creating their own players right now. Yeah,
that's it. They're creating their own, and like you said, it's not fellas going over for the jolly up for the summer. They're buying in. Like I know from talk to the few lads over in Tralee who'd be closer to Gavin O'Brien, and the training he was telling them was heavy metal. They're buying in. Even Shane Carthy, I think, is based down in Boston. He's travelling up. You don't do that for the crack. So they obviously feel that they're on the cusp of maybe creating something. They obviously created history last week. Can they do it two games in a row? Like it's hard to know. But genuinely, like there's so much positive about it. You would hope that it is something that can keep growing, keep evolving, and if they can keep adding in the couple of homegrown players. I'm actually out there myself in 2 weeks, and I have a couple of trips up to Fairley teams, and I'm actually looking forward to seeing it because I have buddies over there and they constantly rave about the work that's done underage. And a lot of it is lads who have grown up in New York their whole lives and are probably taken to Gaelic games because of their friends or their fathers or mothers played it back before them. So look, it's exciting, and look, I think we're all hoping for a good game. Whether they can make it a fairy tale Connacht final appearance, I think it may be one step too far, but hopefully it'll be a good game.
Yeah, potentially that quirk is there. If they win, they go into the All-Ireland Series. If they're to go into the Tailteann, they're not going to play in the group stages and they go directly to a preliminary quarter-final in that competition. So that draw may have to be changed a little bit if New York were to qualify. Neil, you did have your reservations before the Leitrim game about New York's participation in Connacht. Do you still have those reservations about them playing in the province?
Yeah, I suppose reservations is one word for it. I'm just not sure it's the best solution for New York, to be honest with you, Will. And it's because of that situation that you mentioned there, where you know, the rules for the competition at the outset stated that New York will enter the Tailteann Cup at the preliminary quarter-final stage. And it just ties back to the unpredictability of championship football, and including a team from 3,000 miles away in that you know, you're looking at, you know, to travel over to Ireland for any game, it really, you know, at a minimum, it's probably a 5-day journey. So, you know, I think if the GA and everybody involved were honest, the competition was designed on the presumption that New York wouldn't win a game and definitely wouldn't end up in a Connacht final. And then you have that, I suppose, situation where if New York end up in the Tailteann Cup, that they don't play in the group stage, and if New York end up in the Sam Maguire, that they do play in the group stage. So I just don't know how we tie that up. And then if we look at the practicalities of that, if New York end up having to play in the Sam Maguire group stage, which, I would say is a 50-50 possibility, over the next 24 hours, we're going to see how that plays out. But they have to play, a minimum of 3 extra games. I know there's talk that a home-based team will fly out for one of those games, but you're still looking at asking 30 amateur players to fly back to Ireland for maybe 2 consecutive weekends, with, maybe just 10 to 14 days notice. So, listen, I think we should do more to integrate New York. I think there's loads more we can do for New York and all the other, I suppose, GA outlets across the world, to get them more involved. But just including them in a championship where games are played with 2 weeks' notice, and, having rules in that championship that are different depending on what competition they progress to, it just doesn't fit perfectly with me.